Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers panhandling, uses of force on animals, and resisting, and is brought to us by WCNC's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. Before we dive into the interaction, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Fume. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about moon rituals or sacred crystals. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume. And they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. Fume is a habit that you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habits easy. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. I thoroughly enjoy the tactile experience of twisting and twirling the Fume, and it is the perfect device to occupy your hands and your mind whenever you're bored. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard. But switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/audit right now, or scan the QR code and use code AUDIT. They're having an amazing 20% off site-wide running from now until December 1st. And after that, you can still use my code to get 10% off. The Fume Solano launched on November 6th, and you can upgrade your Journey Pack to the Solano to enjoy the premium walnut barrel and onyx black-coated mouthpiece that has a smoother finish and still get the discount. That's tryfum.com and use code AUDIT to get a discount on your order today. On October 13th, 2021, Officer Sierra Brooks of the Gastonia Police Department responded to a 911 call in Gastonia, North Carolina, alleging that an individual was standing at an intersection, and I'm quoting, using dogs to make people feel sorry for them to give them money. When she arrived on the scene, she found disabled and unhoused veteran Joshua Rohrer and his Veteran Affairs' prescribed service dog, Sunshine, standing on the median of a road. The interaction that followed was captured on body camera.
I just saw you take money from that car.
Yeah, you saw me take money, but you didn't see me ask.
All right, let me get your ID, okay?
You can't ask for my ID for
yes, I can.
giving me money.
Okay, get your dog, okay? Yes, I can. It's called panhandling. You can give me your ID or you can go to jail for RDO. Which one you want to do?
What's the ID for that?
Because I'm about to write you a citation.
For what?
For panhandling.
That's not panhandling.
Yes, it is.
If you come up to me and give me money...
You walked out to the car.
Because they stopped.
Give me your ID.
You saw the whole situation.
Give me your ID or you're going to jail for RDO, which is resist, delay, obstruct. Okay?
You're going to write a disabled veteran that's living in the woods a ticket.
Yes, because I asked you not to do it, and you
I didn't do it. You
and
see me. I come up
watched
here. I'm packing my stuff up.
I sit there and watch
you. You watch me walk up the sidewalk.
Back in Third City. I'm out with that subject.
Like, you literally watched me walk up the sidewalk.
Okay,
you
give me your
watched the
ID
car stop. I'm recording.
You violated a city
ordinance.
ordinance.
No, I didn't. There's no city ordinance that says somebody can't give me money.
And you obstructed traffic.
No, I didn't.
I probably need a sergeant out here. He's refusing to give me his ID. Now you see we got a sergeant and multiple units on their way out here. And I can almost guarantee you it's not going to go the way you want it to go.
I want to talk to a supervisor.
He's on his way out here.
ID.
10-4, he requested a sergeant.
Doing all right, sir.
Just out with him. I told him he couldn't be on the median.
Yeah, and that's why I was packing my stuff up.
Walk out to a car to get money.
Yeah, I saw him at Circle K the other day with the car.
So now he's refusing to give me his ID because I'm going to write him for violating the city
She's
ordinance.
trying to write me a ticket because I was walking up this, packing up. She told me to pack up.
I told
and
you,
I was literally rolling up my roll. People give me money without me asking. I don't have to ask.
Because let me tell you, because you're not a lawyer. You can get one, but I can tell you how the law works.
Listen, up like you told me
I just want you to know, you can go to jail for this ordinance. If you continue to argue with officers, you're going to go to jail, and we are going to call animal control for your dog. You got it? You cannot be here.
That's fine. I told her I was leaving.
And I interpreted you asking for money because you're you walk out to the car.
You're writing me a ticket for a crime I didn't commit.
Can we get your ID?
Dude, I didn't commit this crime.
But you're also in the median after I've told you not to be here before.
And that's why I was vacating, because she asked me to leave. And I was literally walking up here. I didn't ask anybody for money.
Okay.
That's right. I'm taking this to trial.
You can.
You're wasting taxpayer dollars.
Okay. Well, I pay my taxes too.
Officer Maurice Taylor arrives on the scene, and the officers claim that Mr. Rohrer violated a city ordinance by panhandling. Mr. Rohrer argues that he did not commit a crime because he did not ask for the money, he simply accepted it. Under Section 5-17 of the Gastonia Ordinances, quote, "It shall be unlawful for any person to ask, beg, solicit, or offer to work for money by accosting another, or forcing oneself upon the company of another." The ordinance specifies that, quote, "For purposes of this section, ask, beg, solicit, or offer to work for shall include the spoken, written, or printed word, or such other acts as are conducted in furtherance of the permitted activity," and defines accosting as, quote, "approaching or speaking to an individual in such a manner as would cause a reasonable person to fear imminent bodily harm or the commission of a criminal act." Additionally, the ordinance defines forcing oneself upon the company of another as, quote, "continuing to request, beg, solicit, or offer to work in close proximity to the individual addressed after the person to whom the request is directed has made a negative response, blocking the passage of the individual addressed, whether such person be within or without a motor vehicle, or otherwise engaging in conduct which could reasonably be construed as intended to compel or force a person to accede to such demands." Accordingly, although it's potentially arguable that Mr. Rohrer's waiving could be considered an action that was conducted in furtherance of asking for money, it seems clear that Mr. Rohrer did not accost any drivers or force himself upon anyone's company under the definitions established by the ordinance. However, Section 6-228B of the Gastonia Ordinances states that, quote, "It shall be unlawful for any person to stand, sit, or loiter in any street or highway, including the shoulders or median strip, but excluding sidewalks, and to solicit or accept contributions from the occupants of any stopped vehicle, or to sell or distribute merchandise or literature to the occupants of any stopped vehicle." Nonetheless, while Mr. Rohrer's conduct likely constituted a violation of this ordinance, as he did accept a contribution from an occupant of a stopped vehicle, there is a strong probability that a court would find both of the Gastonia panhandling ordinances to be unconstitutional for violating the First Amendment. As the Supreme Court determined in the 2015 case of Reed versus Town of Gilbert, quote, "Content-based laws, those that target speech based on its communicative content, are presumptively unconstitutional and may be justified only if the government proves that they are narrowly tailored to serve compelling state interests." Prior to the Reed decision, lower courts had typically interpreted panhandling laws as being quote-unquote content neutral and therefore subject to so-called intermediate scrutiny, which meant the government only needed to prove that the restriction was narrowly tailored to serve a significant government interest rather than a compelling government interest as required by the test for content-based laws, which is known as strict scrutiny. However, in the Reed case, the Supreme Court clarified that, quote, "Government regulation of speech is content-based if a law applies to particular speech because of the topic discussed or the idea or message expressed." And as the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida explained in the 2021 case of Messina versus City of Fort Lauderdale, after reviewing a series of court decisions that concluded that panhandling regulations were unconstitutional, quote, "The application of strict scrutiny usually sounds the death knell for a challenged ordinance, particularly in the arena of the First Amendment. There are, of course, notable exceptions, but so far anyway, there don't appear to be any exceptions in the panhandling context. Accordingly, it is likely that a court would conclude that both Gastonia panhandling ordinances violate the First Amendment and therefore could not be constitutionally applied to Mr. Rohrer."
There you go.
No, your state ID, not your VA ID.
This isn't valid. It's not valid.
I need your state ID, not your VA ID. I'm going to ask you one more time.
It's not even valid.
Give me your
It's
state
out of
ID.
date.
All right, turn around. You're being arrested.
Whoa, what for, dude?
Turn around.
Are you kidding me?
Turn around.
Do
Turn
you
around.
see this?
Turn around.
Somebody help me!
Turn around.
Hey, what are you doing?
Turn around.
Stop! What are you doing?
Sir.
Mama!
Hey.
What are you doing?
Hey. Call your dog off. 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 Sir, call your dog off. Call your dog off. He just bit me. He bit me. Call your dog off. To Charlie. Call your dog off. Call your dog off. Call your dog off. Call your dog off. We need. To Charlie 10 City. We need more units. We need more units.
Help me! Stop! What are you doing?
After claiming that Sunshine bit him, Officer Taylor deployed his taser on Sunshine, who ran off after she was tased. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over North Carolina, held in the 2003 case of Altman versus City of High Point that dogs merit protection under the Fourth Amendment as quote-unquote effects, otherwise known as personal property. The court also concluded that, quote, a Fourth Amendment seizure of personal property occurs when there is some meaningful interference with an individual's possessory interests in that property, and that, as such, a warrantless quote-unquote interference with a dog must be quote-unquote reasonable in order to comply with the requirements of the Fourth Amendment. In the Altman case, the court ultimately determined that animal control officers acted reasonably under the Fourth Amendment when they shot and killed several dogs that were running at large in the city, all of which had attacked someone or were a known dangerous breed acting aggressively. However, in the 2020 case of Ray versus Roan, the Fourth Circuit determined that a dog owner had stated a claim for an unconstitutional seizure by alleging that an officer shot and killed her dog when he was barking and approaching aggressively, but tethered and unable to reach the officer. While acknowledging that, now quoting, the government undoubtedly has a strong public interest in protecting citizens and officers from dogs that may be dangerous or otherwise a source of public nuisance, the court ultimately concluded that the officer was not entitled to qualified immunity because he shot the dog, now quoting, at a time when he could not have held a reasonable belief that the dog posed a threat to himself or others. At the time Officer Taylor alleged Sunshine bit him, Sunshine could be seen on Officer Taylor's body camera standing several feet away from him, and although she was not leashed, there is nothing in the body camera footage that looks like Sunshine biting either of the officers or acting aggressively in any way. Rather, as Mr. Rohrer's attorney explained in a federal complaint that he filed as a result of this incident, Sunshine appeared to be attempting to comfort Mr. Rohrer, as she was trained to do as a service animal for his PTSD, panic attack disorder, and hiatal hernia. According to the complaint, quote, sensing Mr. Rohrer's distress, Sunshine paced calmly around Mr. Rohrer's feet and then jumped onto the car to be closer to his face, in keeping with her training. The complaint also alleges that, quote, Sunshine was non-aggressive throughout the encounter and did not bite Defendant Taylor or anyone else. Instead, Sunshine exhibited non-threatening posture, did not growl, lower her ears, snap, lunge, or give any other indication that she might be dangerous, and merely walked calmly back and forth in Mr. Rohrer's vicinity. This assessment appears to be in line with the body camera footage, and if a court agreed that Sunshine did not pose a threat to the officers, it is likely that it would also agree that Officer Taylor's actions in tasing her were unreasonable.
Turn around.
Record this!
Turn around, sir.
Help me!
2 Charlie 10 City, taser deployed on the dog.
No, take that Charlie and 10 was bit by the dog.
It bit my foot and I knew it was going to bite you, sir.
Charlie 10 was bit by the dog.
10-4, it didn't break my boot, but it bit my boot.
Relax and give me your hand.
Why are you doing this? I haven't done anything.
His dog is never protecting
I get you, but I have to do what I have to do. The dog bit me, okay?
No, it didn't, because you shot him with a taser.
So what did they ask you for?
His
They asked me for my
ID.
ID, and then he grabbed me and tackled
Because
me
you
and
wouldn't
threw me
give
on
it
the
to me.
floor. I was in
Because
the
you wouldn't give it
process of
to me.
handing it to you.
This guy has been out here for months. His dog is never protecting
Okay, we're doing what we have
They
to do.
tased my dog.
We have to do our
Here's
job.
the thing, y'all didn't see the whole story, so just back up.
Dude, you didn't either. You're harassing me and
Be nice right now. Really think be nice.
Thank you. I need your information. Somebody please help me. They're trying to kidnap me. I don't know what they do with Sunshine. Where's my dog? Sunshine Ray. I need my dog. She's my medical device.
The dog's always here. He never bites anybody. You come give him money.
I get, but when we're trying to detain the owner, of course the dog's going, and I asked him to call his dog off. The dog got on the hood of the car, and the dog began barking. The dog initially barked and bit my boot, but it didn't break my boot. I did not want this dog to bite my partner. You understand?
No, I understand.
Okay, we asked for his ID. He refused us to give us his ID.
Officer Taylor claims that Mr. Rohrer was arrested because he refused to show his ID to be issued a citation, despite the fact that Mr. Rohrer provided his federal veteran identification card. Under Section 14-223 of the North Carolina General Statutes, which codifies the offense of resisting officers, quote, if any person shall willfully and unlawfully resist, delay, or obstruct a public officer in discharging or attempting to discharge an official duty, the person is guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor misdemeanor. In the 2014 case of State versus Friend, the North Carolina Court of Appeals held that, quote, the failure to provide information about one's identity during a lawful stop can constitute resistance, delay, or obstruction within the meaning of Section 14-223. However, the court specifically noted that it had previously determined in the 1997 case of Roberts versus Swain that the failure to provide a social security number during a stop was not sufficient to establish probable cause to arrest, because the refusal to provide the social security number did not hinder or prevent police officers from completing the arrest and citation, and that the Friend case was different because the defendant's refusal to provide identifying information did hinder the officer from completing a citation. Similarly, in the 2022 case of State versus Harper, the North Carolina Court of Appeals upheld a resisting conviction against an individual who, while detained during a valid Terry stop, refused to provide quote-unquote verifiable identification, and instead produced a card containing his name with initials, title, a telephone number, and a quote from the 1978 Supreme Court case of City of Houston versus Hill when an officer requested his identification. In affirming the conviction, the court concluded that the defendant's actions prevented and obstructed the officers from conducting a proper and prompt investigation into the alleged disturbance, stating that, now quoting, defendant refused to provide verifiable identification and delayed the officer's ability to promptly investigate and resolve the call. While defendant did in fact attempt to give a card with purported information, that was not immediately verifiable as accurate. The officers were unable to ensure accurate information was presented to investigate the disturbance dispatch, close out the call, and complete their report. Here, Mr. Rohrer did offer immediately verifiable identification, as he provided his veteran identification card, which was issued by the federal government. Veteran IDs do not include an individual's address, and if the officers needed Mr. Rohrer's address to issue the citation, it is arguable that his veteran ID was insufficient for the officers' needs. However, as Mr. Rohrer attempted to explain to the officers, his state ID was expired and did not contain his correct address, calling into question any necessity for the state ID the officers might have claimed to exist. Further, as the North Carolina Court of Appeals explained in the 2020 case of State versus Humphreys, quote, the state must present substantial evidence to support a finding the defendant willfully and unlawfully obstructed, delayed, or resisted a public officer. When a defendant merely remonstrates, she does not resist arrest. Similarly, even if a defendant resists arrest, but does so with the belief she has the right to, case law holds she does not act willfully and unlawfully. In the Humphreys case, the court determined that a resisting charge should be dismissed when, now quoting, there is insufficient evidence defendant acted willfully in purposeful or deliberate violation of the law, as she reasonably believed she had the right to act as she did in observing the officers and protesting what she perceived as an unlawful search. Applying this precedent, Mr. Rohrer would have a strong defense against any resisting charges stemming from his refusal to provide his expired state ID rather than his veteran's ID.
I'm not sure if she's mad because he's here all the time and they don't like the fact that we had to do what we had to do.
Please help me.
I'll tell you. Yeah, it didn't break. His dog initially bit me.
No, you
It didn't break my boot.
dog.
It got
My
on
dog
the thing
was
and I
running
and the dog
away and he
and I
shot
thought the
her
dog
while she was running away.
I didn't shoot her. I tased her.
Yes, he did. He tased her for no
My camera's still on.
Mine's on.
And you seen the dog go which way?
It ran down this way somewhere. I'm good, but
EMS or anything?
no, I'll talk to you later.
We're good.
Oh.
After his arrest, Mr. Rohrer was charged with soliciting alms, soliciting from a highway, and 2 counts of resisting a public officer. And on July 6, 2022, as part of a plea agreement with the Gaston County District Attorney's Office, the DA dismissed all charges stemming from his October 13, 2021 arrest, and Mr. Rohrer pled guilty to an unrelated charge of driving while license revoked. Mr. Rohrer was sentenced to 2 years of probation upon the condition that he participate in the Catawba County Veterans Treatment Court. On June 30th, 2023, Mr. Rohrer filed a lawsuit against Officer Taylor, Officer Brooks, and the City of Gastonia, among others, alleging violations of the First Amendment, violations of the Fourth Amendment, including the use of excessive force against Mr. Rohrer and an unreasonable seizure of sunshine, violations of the Americans with Disabilities Act, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. In addition to attacking the constitutionality of the events immediately surrounding his arrest, Mr. Rohrer's complaint alleged that, now quoting, the city has subjected Mr. Rohrer to a relentless campaign of harassment harassment, abuse, and defamation. This campaign has involved hundreds of disparaging, false, and taunting public comments by the city through the official Gastonia Police Department Facebook account, including statements made directly on Mr. Rohrer's personal Facebook profile. Along with his complaint, Mr. Rohrer filed a 68-page exhibit composed of screenshots of some of the statements made by the city through its official Gastonia Police Department Facebook page relating to Mr. Rohrer. I have included a link to both the complaint and this exhibit in the description of this episode, and I strongly encourage you to review these documents if you're interested in learning more. As of the date of writing this episode, Mr. Rohrer's lawsuit is still pending. Sadly, while Mr. Rohrer was being held in custody after his arrest, Sunshine escaped from a caretaker and was killed when she ran into traffic and was struck by a vehicle. In the complaint for his lawsuit, Mr. Rohrer alleged that Sunshine's death was the direct result of her being tased, as she had previously been able to cross the streets safely on her own due to her training as a service animal. Following Sunshine's death, Mr. Rohrer experienced a severe mental health episode and ran head-on into traffic attempting to end his life. Fortunately, his attempt was unsuccessful, but according to the complaint filed in his lawsuit, Mr. Rohrer began seeing a therapist twice a week and began taking a range of psychiatric medications to address the mental health repercussions of his arrest and Sunshine's death. In January of 2022, Officer Brooks received a 3-day disciplinary suspension without pay. The Gastonia Police Department declined to publicly comment on why she was suspended, but there was some speculation that it was related to a post on her personal social media account where she stated that Mr. Rohrer's supporters sounded, and I'm quoting, dumb as hell, and that Mr. Rohrer, now quoting again, clearly was in the wrong. In February of 2022, Officer Taylor resigned from the Gastonia Police Department, and in August of 2022, Gaston County District Attorney Travis Page announced that Officers Taylor and Brooks would not face criminal charges for their actions during Mr. Rohrer's arrest. In a statement regarding the lack of charges, DA Page wrote, quote, "Immediately after first viewing this footage in 2021, I consulted with the State Bureau of Investigation about a criminal investigation. I was of the opinion then, and remain of the opinion, that Officers Brooks and Taylor committed no acts of criminal wrongdoing. I believe that the only criminal acts depicted in the body cam footage of October 13th, 2021 were committed by Joshua Rohrer, who resisted, delayed, and obstructed the actions of Officers Brooks and Taylor. My office's dismissal of the relevant charges as part of a plea agreement was in no way a repudiation or negative reflection of the actions of the officers involved. In fact, it was an act of mercy given to a veteran with a very concerning criminal history in hopes that he would receive the assistance he dearly needs." When his lawsuit was announced in June of 2023, Mr. Rohrer released a statement of his own, which read in part, quote, "As many members of the Gastonia community know, October 13th, 2021 was one of the worst days of my life. The Gastonia Police Department violated my constitutionally protected rights, assaulted me, and tased and permanently incapacitated Sunshine, my VA-prescribed PTSD service animal. I have vowed to get justice for Sunshine since that day, and the filing of this lawsuit is the next step in that promise to her." Mr. Rohrer also wrote that, quote, "Gastonia has long had a history of targeting and mistreating those it deems less desirable. Fittingly, they say that Sunshine is the best disinfectant. I hope that this lawsuit will be that disinfectant and bring justice and accountability to Gastonia." Overall, Officer Taylor, Officer Brooks, and the Gastonia Police Department get an F for likely violating Mr. Rohrer's First Amendment rights by enforcing unconstitutional panhandling laws, unreasonably tasing Sunshine when she did not pose a danger to the officers, and failing to consider Mr. Rohrer's disabilities when interacting with him and Sunshine. In particular, Officer Taylor's actions in apparently lying about Sunshine biting him and then tasing her when she was not behaving aggressively, ultimately leading to her death, were more than reprehensible, and revealed an alarming lack of care for both Mr. Rohrer's healthcare needs and Sunshine's life. Throughout the encounter, Officer Taylor and Officer Brooks not only failed to demonstrate any empathy for Mr. Rohrer's disability, but they also seemed to treat him with contempt and disdain, and repeatedly threatened to separate him from Sunshine, despite the fact that she was a VA-prescribed service animal that Mr. Rohrer needed to function. Additionally, the Gastonia Department has continually defended Officer Taylor's actions in tasing Sunshine, and publicly disparaged Mr. Rohrer for speaking out. This entire situation is honestly unfathomable, and if I could give everyone involved on the government side of this encounter a lower grade than an F, I would certainly do so. As for Mr. Rohrer, I cannot rightfully assign a grade to an individual who suffers from mental health disabilities and was so clearly victimized by officers who seem to lack any respect for his legal and constitutional rights. That being said, Mr. Rohrer has done a tremendous job in his efforts to speak out against his treatment and hold the appropriate government officials responsible for their violations. He has repeatedly fought for justice and continues to do so through his pending lawsuit. I offer Mr. Rohrer my deepest condolences for the loss of Sunshine and commend him for taking appropriate action, legal and otherwise, to expose the bad actors in this situation and hold them accountable for their actions. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic that you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.